y'all, Farmer Dre back at it. I am out here in our first high tunnel where we had our tomatoes, and as you guys can see behind me here, our cover crop is coming in very nicely. And I had somebody ask, why didn't I grow a cash crop during the winter versus a cover crop? Just because this is one of the most precious pieces of dirt we have here on the farm. So in today's video, I'm gonna go ahead and address that. So as you guys can see here, the tillage radishes or daikon radishes are coming up real nice here, real thick, just like I wanted them. There's 5 pounds of seed that I broadcasted out in this area here. And in some of these areas, they're still germinating, a little slower to germinate. I noticed that on the west side of the tunnel, the germination is a whole lot better than the east side of the tunnel, just because that sun beating down on the west side in the evenings was just a little warmer, so it germinated a lot faster. But it is coming in very, very nicely in here. As you guys can see, everything is growing. So another thing I want to show you guys here is, as you guys can see here, that's a tomato plant, and we have a lot of grass and different weeds growing as well. So this has been a really warm fall. It's not supposed to get cold up until about the middle of December, so that's helping out in many different ways. I mean, there's pros and cons to being warm this late. First of all, I'm really excited because the strawberries, we don't have to put the row covers on the strawberries, so that's going to help us out for a while. And another benefit with that is, you know, you're actually getting a lot more warmer temperatures in here, so we are germinating a lot of weeds before the winter comes. So, you know, we pulled out the tomatoes about the middle of October. We tilled it up nicely, and now went ahead and watered and sowed our cover crop. And one nice thing about what I did right this year is a lot of my weeds are growing now. A lot of the grasses, a little bit of Johnson grass is growing, so that whenever it gets cold, once again, those are all going to freeze out, and I won't have as much weed issue next spring or next summer. So that's one benefit to doing this. And once again, we're keeping something growing in the soil, so these daikon radishes here are growing real nice, are coming in real nice. So just for the health of the soil and to help soil biology progress, you know, you got to have something growing inside the soil at all times. So what is the point of a cover crop? So the point of a cover crop is just to have something actively grown in the soil. And there's a lot of benefits to this. First of all, it helps hold the soil together. It stops soil erosion. And there's a lot of benefits to that. Your soil doesn't fly away over the winter. And since we're out here in Southwest Missouri, we don't get that cold to freeze out the soil, and we don't get, you know, warm enough to grow anything in it. So it's a kind of in between where, you know, we have a few days when it gets down in the teens and 0 degrees, but all winter long, you know, our soil is continually thawing and freezing, thawing and freezing. So having something growing, some kind of root system or something growing in that soil really helps keep that soil together. And if you do get a big rain and the soil is super soft from the freezing and thawing from all winter long, then if you got a big rain, it could easily erode your soil. But if you have something actively grown in your soil, you know, that won't happen just because those roots hold the soil together. So then, you know, you might ask, so what is a cover crop, or what is used? So technically anything can be used as a cover crop. Any plant, even tomatoes could be, you know, considered a cover crop. And a cover crop is a crop that you're not going to harvest, meaning, you know, it's just there to keep the soil together, help out the soil biology, and then you just kind of till it under, get rid of it, or treat it more like a green manure. So that's the definition, in my opinion, of a cover crop. Something that you plant that you're not going to harvest. So, you know, these radishes in here, you know, someone could use these as a cash crop. You know, they could grow radishes, you know, pick them and then sell them at market. So then that's not considered a cover crop anymore. It's considered a cash crop. So a cover crop is just something that is growing that you're not going to sell for a profit, and just something that could be actively grown. So you could use anything. A lot of times in our area, a lot of farmers use like different types of grasses, like annual ryegrass, clover, just something to keep that soil together. So it could be just about anything. A lot of radishes are used in this area, and I'm going to get into later on in this video of why these daikon radishes are really beneficial to the soil. But, you know, just anything that could grows really well during the winter inside the high tunnel. And as you guys could see out there at the strawberries, we planted that annual ryegrass in between the rows just because it grows really well through the colder months of the year, just to keep that soil between the rows or at the strawberries in place. So you might ask me, why radishes in our high tunnel? So the reason we planted these daikon radishes in the high tunnel is just what the benefit of having a radish inside a high tunnel, or these daikon radishes, they have a really long taproot. It's a method of breaking up the soil, you know, deep ripping the soil without using the power and the force of hydraulics or tractor. And like I said, that one of the benefits to the radishes, first of all, just has something actively growing. And another huge benefit to using these daikon radishes is it breaks down that hard pan in the soil. So in here, we've been using a rototiller, which does about, you know, 4 to 6 inches in, you know, below the soil. But these daikon radishes, if you let them grow long enough, they'll get anywhere from 10 to 12 inches long. So it'll definitely break through that, you know, a hard pan if we do have one, and definitely break through that and loosen up that subsoil area. So that's why we went ahead and did the daikon radishes, just because it goes ahead and breaks out that soil from underneath, and it opens up the soil down there for aeration issue. If you have any aeration issues in the soil or drainage issues, then that really opens up that subsoil, so it'll be available to your cash crop. And as you guys know, we grow tomatoes in here, so tomato roots, you know, if it has a really hard pan, it's not going to try to push through it. So, you know, on tomatoes, they'll only grow in 4 to 6 inches of soil. But if we go ahead and open up some of that deeper levels of the soil with these daikon radishes, then we'll have a more vigorous tomato plant, just because it has where to sink its roots in and pull up more nutrients from that subsoil. So now to my main question, this is why I'm making this video right here, is why didn't I plant a cash crop in the high tunnel over the winter? And to be honest with you guys, I could have, but like I tell everybody else, and this is what I preach on my channel, is if you don't have a market for something, there's no point of growing it. So I did, for the past couple of years, I've been doing some research, some market, you know, just looking around, seeing, you know, we go to a lot of farmers markets and seeing what other farmers have, what other vendors, and seeing what the customers want over the winter. And one thing that, you know, is really popular in this area, and it's really popular at farmers markets, is, of course, you got your greens, you got your lettuce, spinach, kale, arugula, of course you got your radishes, all kinds of different stuff like that. And in our area, there's quite a bit of farmers that do have those already in the ground, and they have multiple high tunnels of greenhouses full of those. So for me to step in that market, I would just be interfering with them, and there's already so many of them that, you know, I'm not the expert on growing those kind of things, so I'll just be interfering with them. And you know, I looked into growing like carrots and stuff, but once again, there's all those other farmers that do grow that. So, you know, I could have possibly tried it out, but for me, there wasn't really an available market for this produce that I could have grown in here. And you know, it depends what kind of farm you are. We're mainly a fruit farm, so you know, you just gotta notice and realize what your customer base wants and what your customers want from you. So you know, it's possible to grow everything, but then again, you want to specialize in certain things and just become really good at those things. So as you guys know from my YouTube channel, you guys know that, you know, we grow a lot of tomatoes, of course we have blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, apples, and peaches. So that's some of, you know, we want to have just about 5 or 6 main crops on our farm, and then that's it. We could diversify in other things, but then that takes more power and energy from me that I'm lacking from those other crops. So then it's just an even balance of between, you know, what we can and cannot do. And one of the big things about growing all of those other vegetable crops during the winter is we plant our tomatoes really early in this area. We're one of the, you know, there's about a handful of farmers that plant tomatoes as early as we do. So as you guys know, we plant our tomatoes in the soil the last week of April. And in the middle of the winter there, the last week of April there, that is the peak season for all those other vegetable crops. So there's no point in me planting a crop of that and having to pull it out just to plant my tomatoes in it. So from a time management standpoint, it just makes more sense to plant the cover crop in here, let it grow, till it under about the middle of January, maybe about the first week of February, get ready to plant tomatoes, and then go ahead and plant our cash crop of tomatoes in here, and then do the same thing hopefully next year, and just trying out different things. But just, you know, time management and knowing what different crops you're going to grow in your high tunnel. So like I said earlier, you know, just having something actively grown in the soil really benefits your soil, helps out the soil organic matter, helps out the soil aeration, it helps build, you know, a stronger biology and a better ecology in your soil. So yeah, there's many benefits to cover crop. I'm no cover crop expert. So out here in high tunnel number 2 now, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the strawberries. They've been growing real nice in here, and I still haven't came through and resolved the weed issue. So the coldest it has gotten here on the farm, I think got down to 27 or 28. So it did get cold, but in a high tunnel, you know, the temperature stays a lot warmer. And I have a few tomato plants going in between the rows here. So you know it didn't get too cold just because those tomato plants are still alive, because if it would have gotten, you know, below 30 degrees, those tomato plants would have been dead. So it's still staying warm in here. We go ahead and we close up the sides at night, and that just conserves the heat and energy inside the tunnel here itself. But yeah, everything is growing nicely. Like I mentioned in my other videos, these Monterey's have been growing really, really well, really fast, just amazingly well. So just very vigorous in fertilizing them. So this is what you want to see here. This runner here on this Monterey here, it's super thick, super fat. That means the plant is healthy. So look at the size of this tomato plant here. It's just a seed that germinated from last year's crop. But you know, if it would have got cold enough, this would have been dead. But you know, they're not dead. So there's a lot of tomato plants growing in between the rows here, because all the tomatoes that fell down on the ground, they went ahead and germinated. And now I guess we're growing tomatoes in between the rows here. So this in here is technically considered a cash crop, because we are growing this crop for sale, for production. So this is not considered a cover crop, even though we're still growing it in the soil. So like I mentioned earlier, the difference between a cover crop and a cash crop in a high tunnel is if you're able to sell them, and that's what we're doing here. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys. We left one strawberries on these plants here. So this is Albion in here. So this should have been pulled off, but I want to see how they taste. So we've been coming off here and pulling off all the flowers and stuff, because we want to conserve all the energy to the plants. But just because I was curious to see how these taste, you know, I saved one so slowly, rapidly there. But so like I mentioned in my other videos, my previous videos, if you guys have been following for a while, you guys know that we are putting up our third high tunnel here on the farm in a couple more weeks. So the idea is to have early tomatoes at the #1 there, plant our third high tunnel of tomatoes about the first week of April, because it'll be done by then, and then plant our late crop tomatoes in here about the first week of June. Plant our tomatoes in here. So by the first week of June, all the tomatoes in here should be done, in all the strawberries, not tomatoes, all the strawberries in here should be done and over with. So we'll go ahead and just rip out all the strawberry plants and plant the tomatoes in the same plastic, use the same drip tape. So just double crop this high tunnel with tomatoes. And if I really enjoy that and it goes really well, then next year I might do 2 high tunnels full of strawberries, but we'll see. And that's why I'm experimenting with the different crops in here. So that's the whole idea with the tomatoes and the strawberries and the tunnels in here. So next year we'll actually have 4 tunnels full of tomatoes. So my brother Val, he actually got accepted to run a high tunnel grant as well in his place. So we'll be putting up a high tunnel in his place, another high tunnel on our place. So, but yep, this is what you consider a cash crop. So I hope I answered some questions on why we didn't plant a cash crop in here, or yeah, a cash crop in here over the winter. So yeah, like I mentioned, middle of last week of about February, we're gonna be planting tomatoes in here. So yep, I'll keep you guys updated on these daikon radishes, and I might pick a bunch or so to just eat for ourselves, see how they go. But hopefully this works out really well, and then these radishes here will do us well, keep our soil healthy, keep the soil biology going, and just keep everything moving. This is gonna be pretty much it for today. If you guys haven't already, go and hit that subscribe button, go and smash that like button if you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys want some real farmer or farmer Dre merch, the link is down in the description box below. Go ahead and check it out. I want to say thanks for watching up to this point. You guys have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one.